Good morning, you two. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Absolutely fantastic. Dexter, I got to tell you something. Your journalism is phenomenal because you're taking a story here that a generation such as the millennials as well as the Gen Zers, they don't know it, but you're making it so authentic and being present. And I'm just very proud of you the way that you are putting this together.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm not sure what to say. I really appreciate you saying that.
Well,
Thank you. It's a huge team working on it. So I can't say it's just me.
the
It's a huge team working on it.
the true depth of hip hop, I think, is so many times has been lost. We don't know the story. We don't know the building blocks that it took to get up to where it is now, and it's requiring people like yourself to say, "Hey, look, I lived it. I lived it, and you need to know it."
Yeah, I mean, and this is, and that's for Tablo to say. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who truly lived and really can explain it. But that is hip hop at its core. I think I
Yeah.
agree.
Yes.
Tablo, we have something in common. The story of when you came home and the CD was busted up and it totally devastated your soul. My father destroyed my radio station in my bedroom, and to this day I still feel the impact. I mean, I felt your emotion when you were sharing that story.
Damn. And look at what we're doing now.
Right?
Yeah, like if my suggestion to parents, if you really don't want your kid to do a certain a career path, take a certain career path, just tell them to do it. Encourage them. Don't destroy their dreams because they will pursue it more.
Now, Dexter, what was it like for you to step into this story? Because I mean, as that journalist, you in a really weird way, you've got to be able to live Tablo's life, and so that we can feel it.
Yeah, I mean, and I've got to say, I've been getting a lot of people, messages from people who told me, I was, they were in Korea when this was, when this is happening. They remember it, or they were big fans of the music already, and they remember when all this is happening, and telling me that it was hard to listen to, even though they thought they knew the details. It was hard for me to sit in the room with Tablo as he was telling me these things. Now I say all this, of course, with the realization that telling somebody, hey, please tell me about the worst time in your life,
Hmm.
which unfortunately is a job that I do often. Um, I'm not sure that I didn't realize how difficult actually the conversations would be.
Yeah. Tablo, you were labeled, the God. I mean, that's just the that's Tablo, the God. And the thing is that I mean, did you ever feel in your heart that you had to live up to that label, or is it just something you just kind of okay, thank you, I accept the compliment. I'm very grateful for this moment of now.
I mean, the way they were using the word God was to sort of, it was in a derogatory way.
Hmm.
I think they were trying to call me that because you would actually have to be a god to achieve the things that I supposedly achieved in their eyes.
Hmm.
And because of that, like that term, other people would love it, to be called a king or a god within hip hop. But to me, that word has always been very tricky.
Mm. Dexter, you went into that studio to record for the very first time. You said it was kind of messy because they were in there recording some music and stuff like that. I've been in a studio. I know what that's like. What was the energy really like? Was it a dull roar, or did you feel vibrant just knowing that there was some creativity in action?
Are we talking about the recording of the interview that
Yeah,
Tablo and I did?
yeah, yeah. When you first went into that room, because I've been in those studios. I mean, sometimes it can be really dang cold in there, but but words warm things up.
I mean, it was actually very low key.
Wow.
Because I think, and Tablo can actually probably speak even better than this, but they you can tell when somebody's been at it for so long, they have a very streamlined approach to the music. And so, I mean, it was the one thing that I'll remember. Hopefully, you don't mind me telling people this, but I remember you all were still working for the new album that dropped. Your most recent album. You all were still working out the track list, and I remember you had, I think, a dry erase marker. You just written on the door.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah,
this is what track, and it was, track one, two, and then just question marks, and
yeah,
then the track at the end. It's
yes.
it's cool to walk into that and see somebody's creative process.
Yeah, like we don't have crazy posters on the wall. We don't have like post-its everywhere. We just have had that one thing on the dry erase board, and we've been at this for 2 decades now. So streamlined is exactly what we are. It feels like an office, even. You know?
A little bit. An office with some nice synthesizers. I was
Yeah.
admiring the the synthesizer you had on the wall. But yeah, it was an office. Y'all in there to do work. I love
Yeah.
it.
Well, what's fascinating about this story, and this is what I want listeners to understand, is that Tablo, you came through a period of hip hop where I remember here in Charlotte, record stores, real physical record stores, hung up signs that said, "We don't sell rap music." I mean, dude, you went to the underground to get your sound.
Hmm. Yes. It was at a time where hip hop was not a thing in Korea. In order for us to even perform our music, it became increasingly easier, but it took a long, long, long time.
Speaking of telling that explanation there, Mr. Dexter, I mean, you've been a part of that as a journalist and stuff like that. I mean, look at what hip hop has done to even the world of country music today.
Talk about Lil Nas X. Is that what we're going with this? And beyond, of course. But absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is, when Tablo was really trying to break into it, in soul, music wise, um, it's just as you said. Even here in the States, it was the same. I mean, we're still from a generation. We very much had a chip on our shoulder on is this, people didn't think, is this music a fad? At that point, we were beyond that, but it was very much, people could be very protective of what hip hop should sound like and what hip hop could sound like. And it was a pretty, it was a kind of vicious era, I think, of hip hop at that point.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God. I mean, especially when you guys were describing what Tablo's very first CD was going to be, I kept saying, "Come on, say it, Two Live Crew, say it, Two Live Crew." Because
I mean,
that was dangerous music to me, Two Live Crew.
My friends did have it, and they did play it when I was a kid. But it was not the first CD I bought.
Wow. First, the fact that you were buying CDs still shocks me because I grew up in a world of 45s and albums and cassette tapes and stuff like that. Did you ever dive into that?
Well, I was in the area of tapes as well, and the benefit of a cassette tape is you can buy 2 albums for the price of 1 CD.
Yep.
So quite often I would buy cassette tapes.
Yeah. So, Dexter, do you feel like an archaeologist? Do you feel like a storyteller? Because what you're doing here is you're reintroducing Tablo to us as adults, but you're also painting the tale for those that are much younger than us that don't understand this. What do you feel like as this journalist?
That's a really good question. I think I feel less like an archaeologist. What I'm really trying to do is be the person who, all the questions a listener would ask, I try to ask those, if that makes sense. And but I also think that, there's stuff in here you could have never listened to hip hop. You could have difficulty locating Korea on a map. You could, basically not touch computers and only use your phone. But there's something in here. And what I'm trying to do here is make it very clear that, hey, this is not a story about some foreign country. This is not a story about a genre that you don't really listen to or a guy who you've never heard of. This is something that is actually, it has to do with your everyday life. As strange as that may sound, the things that you were seeing online, the things that you're seeing your friends talking about, the stuff that you talk about at the family dinner table, it all starts to kind of connect to the stuff that we're talking about. And that's what I'm sort of trying to make really clear. I'm trying to draw those connections for people.
Yeah, but Tablo, man, he's talking about things that people were talking about from out of nowhere. All of a sudden, these accusations started coming. What the hell was going on in the world when all of a sudden they were saying things about you that weren't true?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, it started off as just something that I felt like I could brush off.
Right.
But very quickly, it became almost like a horror story. But one thing I have to say about the podcast, even though at times it's like a mystery, it's like a suspense story, and then it goes into like full on horror.
Mhm.
Dexter does a very, very amazing job narrating it. There's also great music from Kyle Murdoch, which makes the podcast entertaining, although it is the most difficult story for me to tell. And it's hard for me to listen to it, like honestly, but it's done in such an entertaining way that I have like conflicting, emotions when I listen to it because it's entertaining. It really is.
Yeah, Dexter, were you in the studio putting this all together? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a production whore. I like to be in control of all things. I mean, were you in control?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So not of every small detail, but there is one detail that I was very specific about. I don't want to spoil it because there's some bonus stuff where, listeners can hear about it. But I will say the theme song, now again, Tablo mentioned Kyle, the guy who wrote the theme song for it, but we were very specific about it. I mean, we were arguing back and forth. He had it at 98 beats per minute. I said, you got to take this thing down to maybe 94, probably 93. The hi-hats aren't swinging hard enough. I want some more horns in there. We were down into the details. So yes.
But see, that's the fun part about podcasting because, I mean, Tablo, I mean, imagine when you first started out, the only thing you had was the inside sleeve of a CD. That's how your story got out. Or we happened to read about you on the internet. It wasn't like what Dexter is doing right now, where he even says it in the podcast. He says, the real part of this story begins at the beginning. What? And I go, he's absolutely right.
Yes, he is.
I mean, to go in there and bare your soul. I'm a creative person. I mean, when you start going in there and releasing some of the trash that's inside your heart, all of a sudden, you've got that empty space. What did it do to you?
To empty myself into the podcast?
Yeah, because you're telling your story. You've held all that stuff up on the inside. Maybe your closest friends knew the story, but the world does now, dude.
Yeah, like I haven't told this story in almost a decade.
Wow.
After all of that was resolved, well, quote unquote resolved, you will listen to the podcast and you will know that it's not ever gonna be completely resolved. But yeah, it's a strange feeling telling a story that even confuses you after all these years. But at the same time, like I really felt like this story almost killed me. It almost took my life. But by telling it, I feel like I can save the lives of some others. And that's enough for me.
Well, see, and that's the thing about it is, nowadays we just throw it over our shoulders, calling it fake news and stuff like that. Well, in your world, these accusations, they felt like real news, and we didn't have anything like fake news, and it was like, well, if they're saying it on the internet, then it must be true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty scary, but it people think whatever is on the internet is disconnected from the real world. My story will show that it's not disconnected at all. And now we know that things that happen on the internet affects real lives and the real world, but back then we could not know that.
Dexter, I got to tell you, you're absolutely right. When you walked into that studio and you said that he was just wearing a T-shirt, he was just an everyday guy that would be walking out on the street and you wouldn't recognize him. Look at him today. I mean, he looks just like that average dude. He's touched the world, but yet he's just an average guy.
I am.
How do you stay so humble, sir?
I don't know. Like I started music once I was fully formed as the person I am, I think. Like I didn't debut when I was like 11 or 17. I was out of college. I had life experiences. So pretty much I was just going to be me. And I haven't had a problem being me.
When you sat across from him, Dexter, knowing his story of, especially the educational story at Stanford and stuff like that, and what he did to get out of that university. Remember, he didn't quit that university. He did things that no other human being could possibly do. Come on, a mind like that. Did you see him go into thought? Because you can't have an education like that without thinking about what was just stuffed inside that mind.
I mean, it's as you noted. I mean, he's a humble dude,
Yeah.
and so this isn't somebody who, is showing off. Hey, here's how smart I am. Here's how smart I am. There's never any of that. I think if you met him, you wouldn't necessarily know that he's even into hip hop until you start talking about it and just, okay, nope, this person's a walking encyclopedia of music, knowledge and all these sorts of things. So, but it was a difficult situation because there's sometimes you just want to talk about music, because had all of this not happened, it would have been cool to just talk about music and, hey, what do you like? Hey, this thing came out. But then it's all right, at a certain point, again, we've got to talk about the worst period of your life. Please tell me about that. And also, please tell me in more detail. And so what Tablo was saying is right. I've gotten people, hitting me up telling me how much they enjoyed it. And it's really weird for me. People saying, "Oh, wow, this is this really great true crime podcast." And it's just, "Oh, geez, I guess it technically kind of could be called a true crime podcast." It has all the, it has all the, it does. It has suspense, and it has all this other stuff. It has twists and turns and stuff. But then you realize, again, you were sort of the custodian, or, the person who's introducing this really, really, really heavy thing to people.
Emotionally speaking, Tablo, I'm sure you've gone back and you've listened to everything that Dexter has put together inside these episodes of Authentic, the story of Tablo. Emotionally, how have you been? Because I would be bawling my eyes out.
First and foremost, there's a lot of surprise.
Yes.
Because this is supposed to be my story, but as I listen, I'm surprised by a lot of the details. There are things that I didn't know. And I think that speaks to just the journalism involved. Like, Vice's journalism was amazing. Dexter and the team, they really went in and dug up stuff that even I wasn't fully aware of. So surprise is first.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I think it lessens my, feeling like I want to cry, or, feeling those horrors again, because I'm literally interested, even though it's my own story.
Creative mind to creative mind. I'm a third Dan Taekwondo, and you don't get to third Dan without knowing the history of Korea, because that's part of the martial art. One of the things that I learned very much is that we had in doing the history of Korea was it's all about community. Every person in that nation is all about community. Going back to your 15-year-old self, reading that poetry that caught the attention of people, were you writing about your community? Because you're a writer. You're in touch with emotions and stuff like that.
Oh, most definitely. I think not just with my poetry. When I wrote my college application essay, I wrote heavily about my experiences as a Korean, and my father's experiences, growing up in a different generation in Korea. And all throughout that was a sense of community interweaved. So I was always interested in what it means to be Korean, mm-hmm. and I was always interested in the beauty of the Korean society, which makes what I went through even more ironic and kind of interesting.
Do you find yourself seeing this as the first step of a brand new beginning?
Yeah, I feel like this story needed to be told for me to step into a new chapter of my life. My kids turning 12 in a couple months. I feel like I'm fully an adult now, and it's a weird way to start a new chapter, but I couldn't do it in any other way.
Dexter, I'm thinking a residency in Vegas. What are you thinking?
I love it.
Let's start the petition. Start the petition.
Right. Man, you guys, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you.
Love to. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And you guys be brilliant today, okay?
You too.
You too.
Bye, Arrow.